Why does it happen that we say one thing and yet we do another? We have all good intentions, but then we behave in ways that contradict our intentions, even if we deeply believe in them. Picture this. You're going for a birthday dinner and you tell yourself, I'm going to eat healthily. But then your partner suggests this delicious looking dessert and you say yes. You're planning a trip and you have meticulously researched the hotels. And then you end up going with the recommendation of a friend. Or you're a parent that is very strict on bedtimes, and then the grandparent comes by and says, just for this once. We all have clear intentions, and yet we end up doing something else. Now that is not because we don't care. It is because our actions are influenced by relationships and perceived expertise. And that, I'm here to tell you today, is a massive problem when it comes to solving the world's most pressing challenges. 3 years ago, my business partner and I, we started an experiment. Our hypothesis was this: if we take that behavior, we are able to understand it and redirect it, we will be able to harness it to get more meaningful projects funded with capital. Sounds good, right? I thought you might appreciate a little academic element since we're in a university. But to be very honest with you, our discovery was based on a pure accident. Regardless, the discovery was so mind-blowing that I want to share it with you today. It can quite literally change the world. It has entirely changed how I look at how we are shaping the world and solving the problems in it. So this is what we did. We created a platform with, on one side, startups, projects that are solving critical problems in our world. And on the other side, we gathered people with money who said they could help. And we facilitated the flow of funds from one side to the other and the return the other way. I hear you think, that's nothing new, right? This is the venture capital model. But I have to tell you that on this side, traditionally, the people who are here for 3 decades already share one collective identity, in the sense that they are all men. And that is where we flipped the script. We created a funding model that consisted 100% of women. We created the tribe who invested. And the results are staggering. 6 times more projects that are impact-focused got funded after 3 years. That is 6 times more projects that benefit healthcare, education, and our planet. If we change who invests, we change what gets invented. Now, let's unpack how that works. First of all, I want to invite you to think about a problem that you believe is worth solving. Okay, stop. I have to put a disclaimer out here before you start to dream up all sorts of great causes that you might put all your money in. Because investing in startups is high risk. It is ridiculously high risk. It is so risky, at least 80% of all the startups will never make it. It is like looking at a rough rock and hoping that one day it will become a diamond, without actually having the data to know for sure. When investing in startups, you will always deal with uncertainty. Now, startups actually create solutions that transform our life and work. Without startups, we might still be riding horses. Whereas, who came here with a Grab tonight, or maybe even Cybertruck? On Friday night, we used to go, without startups, to the video rental store to look out the movie that we wanted to see. Whereas now on Friday night, we sit back on our couch and relax, and we have the whole library on demand. Without startups, you might still be going through centimeters and centimeters of newspapers with teeny tiny advertisements showing homes if you are looking for a new place to live. Whereas now, we quite literally have the whole real estate market in our pocket. Without startups, net job creation in the last decade would be negative. So I think it is fair to say that startups drive humanity and our economy forward. Now the hard thing is that startups are dependent on your money and your money and your money. They cannot go to the bank for capital. It's too risky. And the people here who say they are there to help with money, it is essential that they take those leaps of faith without having full data and actually fund those startups if we want startups to continue creating the solutions that our world needs. Now, are we all on the same page that money is a high-stake matter? Like our health, right? Nobody wants to lose it. So how do we actually make those decisions, investing in startups, these high-stake, high-risk decisions? We rely on shortcuts. Bias. Bias acts as a protective mechanism when we face uncertainty. Bias is like our brain's shortcut to safety. It is a quick way of deciding what feels secure and what doesn't. Now, the tricky part is that bias gives us an illusion of protection. However, it is not providing actual protection. When we face high-risk, high-stakes situations, we turn to people that we trust for guidance. Take your meal this weekend. Food definitely being a high-stake matter in Singapore. Let's say there's a new hawker in town. You're more likely to try that new hawker out if a friend from school recommends that hawker than a stranger at the bus stop. Right? And that brings me to a very important phenomenon, which is similarity breeds connection, and connection builds trust. Maybe you are familiar with the phrase, birds of a feather flock together. This is based on the idea of homophily. Homophily, in simple terms, means that people prefer to connect with those who are similar to us. So those who share our age, our gender, our ethnicity, our industry expertise. It's a very common bias. It's so common that in the 1950s, Paul Lazarsfeld and Robert Merton, two sociologists, coined the term homophily. It is very common and very powerful, and it does not make any sense. Imagine, you are hiring somebody in your team. You are tempted to hire a person that is more like you, whereas we know that diverse teams are better at problem solving. If we're looking for a doctor, we tend to choose a doctor based on shared background or maybe ethnicity, whereas we tend to overlook their expertise. Or when looking for a new school for our kids, we are attracted to the parent community that is so similar to our own family, whereas our kid may need another type of education. We do it all the time, and it doesn't make sense. Just because there is a connection doesn't mean that the underlying risk is any less. Yet, we rely on that trust. So similarity breeds connection, and connection builds trust. But trust alone does not reduce risk. It is like locking your front door while leaving all the windows open. It doesn't make any sense, yet we do it all the time. And it is very hard to change. Now, this brings me to the flawed decision-making loop. Let me share with you how that means. We experience high risk. That creates fear. in the situation of investing in startups, this is actual high risk because we never have enough data points to be sure. This unsafety leads us to bias. We're looking to cope with that unsafety. We identify the people in our tribe as those we can trust. Bias makes us feel safe. Those that are similar to us feel familiar and give us trust. That trust reduces our perception of the risk of the decisions that are being made in our tribe. That is not actual reduction of the risk. It is just a perceived trust. We feel we control the risk and we make a decision. We are happy with our tribe and we do it all over again. Now, in the case of investing, as we saw in the beginning, 97% of all the people who have invested in the last 3 decades are male. They find their tribe, identify those who, they trust those who they identify with, they trust the decisions that are being made, they make a decision, and what has shown in the last 3 decades is the investments go 96% to projects that promise to give a financial return. Projects that promise to grow the wallets of the one who invests in. Now, how this works in real life. Let's take 2 examples. 2 Singapore-based companies, startups, early stage in their Series A, right? So they're just finding their product market fit. Take one AI company, Colossal AI. What they do is they're building a deep learning system to train data models at large scale simultaneously. They have raised their funds for their Series A round, 50 million. Now take a green tech startup, Flawed, also Singapore-based, also in the same stage, their Series A. What they have raised? 10 million. Did you know that in the last year, 2024, AI startups have raised in total 24 billion, whereas green tech startups in a total of 2024 have raised 5 billion. What a difference! Whereas AI startups and green tech startups have access to exactly the same pool of investors. So why do we en masse invest in AI startups? It is because AI is the talk of the town. We read it on every pitch deck. Investors are afraid to miss out. But did you know, according to MIT, only 5% of all the jobs can be replaced by AI, which it doesn't make the business case round for all the dollars that are being invested. And did you know that the return on investment is still not clear for investing in AI? Maybe you have read Google's second quarter results. They were razor-thin margins because of all the cost that they put into training data models. In 2024 alone, they nearly invested 50 billion in training data models. That is 84% higher than the average of the last 5 years. So investing in AI is not the safer bet. It is a bias-fueled illusion of safety. Now, what did we do in our experiment? We took this machine, this broken machine, this flawed decision-making loop, and we turned it into our ally. We turned bias into our ally because we know it doesn't make sense. It hinges on flawed decision-making, but it is very hard to change. So we turned its power into our advantage. How did we do that? We added a new tribe who invests, 100% women. In significant numbers, I must say, that makes a difference because currently we are with nearly 500 investors. This tribe built trust through their shared identity. The decisions that are being made are perceived less risky because we trust the connection that we feel with our tribe. We make our investment decision, and guess what? 63% of our portfolio in the last 3 years consists of impact-focused projects. That is 63% versus 10% industry average. This we can repeat over and over again. Imagine we add a new tribe. They build trust through shared identity. They trust the decisions that are being made. They make their own decisions. And who knows what they will invest in. So this leads me to 3 lessons learned. First of all, if we add more tribes that invest, we add more capital to be invested in startups. We increase the pie, so to speak. Secondly, women invest differently than men. And our 3rd lesson learned is imagine what we can do if we add more tribes to the investing world, and imagine what they invest in and what gets invented. If we change who invests, we change what gets invented. Now this is not about building businesses. This is about building a future that serves all of us. We are all in the business of changing the trajectory of what gets built. So my ask to you is twofold. First, if you know a woman, invite her to explore the world of investing. Let her see that it's not only about financial returns, but that it's also about shaping the future that she would like to see. And secondly, in your work, your community, seek out diversity in significant numbers, not for the sake of diversity, but because it fundamentally changes what is being prioritized in this world. If we change the voices who influence the choices of what is being built, we are all in this business of changing the trajectory. So if you manage to rebalance who decides, you change the trajectory of what is being built. And I have done my job today. Thank you.